Hey everyone, it's Jen B, and welcome to my studio. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to take scrap sterling silver and turn it into usable sheet metal. So let's get to work on this labor-intensive process. Alrighty, I'll try not to be super long-winded explaining how to create sheet metal from scrap, but it's really not as quick and easy as you might think. To start, you will need a strong enough torch to melt metal fairly quickly. I'm only melting a small amount of scrap sterling. I think I did a little under half an ounce here, and my torch setup had no problem melting that amount. You don't want to heat the metal for too long, which causes several different problems. So having a strong torch is essential to melt the metal quickly. I'll mention here I'm not going to get super technical with explanations in order to keep this video short and sweet, or at least try to keep it short and sweet. You'll want to have a prepared crucible to melt the sterling in. I've prepared my crucible by melting and coating the surface with borax so that it is smooth and glassy. I've added my scrap to the crucible and started to melt it. It is very, very important to only use clean, solder-free sterling scrap. Using scraps that contain solder can actually cause problems like cracking and brittleness to your sheet because solder contains zinc in order to lower the melting point, and that makes your metal brittle and inflexible because zinc is a brittle and inflexible metal. Melting and creating sheet with solder on the scraps is actually considered contamination. Once the scraps have been melted into a molten blob, you'll want to pour it into an ingot mold. You can see my ingot mold was really too large for the amount of sterling I melted, so I had to redo it and use a kiln brick with a crevice that I carved into it. The ingot came out pretty good, and so we'll move on to the next few steps. I'm going to take a moment here to say that a lot of other videos show taking the ingot directly to a rolling mill to start flattening it into sheet. From the research I've done, it is best and, dare I say, necessary to forge the ingot down and compress it by about 45 to 60% of its original size before sending it through the rolling mill. It's my understanding that this is to compress any shrinkage voids within the metal. If those shrinkage voids are not compressed, the metal could contain little pockets of air inside of it, which, one, are dangerous and could explode when heated and the air expands, and two, it can cause unsightly air bubbles on the surface of the metal. I'll pop in a little clip of what these bubbles look like on some sheet that I created, but did not forge it before I rolled it flat. Okay, so now it's time to forge. Because of some issues with my hand strength, I enlisted the help of my hubby and a heavy hammer for the forging step. We are going to hammer down and compress the ingot by at least 45%. I don't have an anvil yet in my studio, so we did this step on the floor, and every so often I checked the thickness of the ingot with calipers until it was the correct size, and then I can move on to the rolling mill to flatten the ingot into the size of sheet metal I'm looking for. The ingot needs to go through the rolling mill always in the same direction to avoid cracking. So I put an arrow on the ingot to remind myself which direction to send it through the rolling mill. I roll it through a few times, and then I need to anneal the metal so that it relaxes the silver molecules and softens the metal, and I can continue to roll the metal through the rolling mill without using excessive force. So I roll, anneal until I get the silver to the thickness I want. The entire rolling and annealing took right around 30 minutes and was very hard on my body. It is a very physical process to use a manual rolling mill. But I did finally get it to the gauge that I wanted and then flatten it with a hammer on my bench block so that it is ready to use for some silversmithing. Whew, that was a lot of work, and this is why many silversmiths prefer to just pay for sheet metal that has already been created. With the price of silver, I don't mind creating small amounts of sheet metal for me to use in personal projects, but it really isn't cost effective to use it for client work. I hope you all enjoyed seeing the process of creating sheet metal, and very soon I will have a video where I take this sheet metal and turn it into a fabulous piece of jewelry. So stay tuned for that. I hope you all have a fabulous day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!